Welcome to Reddit Reader. Today we're reading from Miss Ray of Sunshine in Am I the A? Am I the A for not letting our contractor use his preferred bathroom? This is a weird one, at least to me. I had a contractor come over to get estimates on some renovations to the kitchen. After about 30 minutes of being here, he asked if he could use our bathroom. Of course, we said yes and led him to a small bathroom we specifically have for guests. It's a half bath, used to be a large closet. He said thanks, hesitated, and then said, "Do you have another one I can use? This one is just too small for me. Do you have a master bath I can use?" Not that I minded at all, but this threw up a ton of weird red flags and feelings. Too small. Man was 120 pounds soaking wet, not disabled to my knowledge, and I'm a relatively thick woman who has no trouble sitting in that bathroom with the door completely closed. The ceiling is high, so I don't see height being an issue. Anyway, I said, "Oh, we prefer guests not use our bathroom in the bedroom." He looked at me and said, "Okay, I'll just wait then." My husband told me I was pretty rude, but in my opinion, the whole interaction was very weird. I was right to be suspicious. Am I the A? In an edit, OP says, "To answer some common questions I've seen in the comments, we do not know the man personally. Yes, he specifically requested a master bath. Yes, the guest bath had everything he could have needed. It's fully functional with soap, towel, toilet paper, and a trash can. The sink is in front of the toilet with a reasonable amount of space between them. We do have another bathroom he could have used that was bigger, and we wouldn't have minded him using it. I was just so taken aback when he specifically requested the master bath that I didn't really think of offering the third bathroom. So what do you think, guys? Is OP the A? Leave a comment below." Our next story is from r/interestingasf, hosted by Singiono. In this small video, road workers have set up a CCTV camera to uncover who was moving the safety traffic cones. It turns out it was a key parrot, considered the most intelligent bird in the world, had moved them to get attention from humans in hopes to get fed. This happened in New Zealand. Let's take a look. Our next post is from StoriesAboutKevin, hosted by Bunsen H. Chemistry student outs himself. Most Kevin stories involving chemistry labs are more spectacular than this one, but also harder to explain. As a chemistry grad student at a moderately prestigious university, I, like most of my colleagues, spent a few hours a week as a lab TA for the first year students. I preferred doing the lab for students who were taking the enriched course. This gave a bit more depth than the regular course, and was intended for students who had a real interest in the subject. Unfortunately, a lot of students were really just after a flashy item on their transcripts. Towards getting into something like medical school, they tended to think that they deserved a good grade because 1, they were at a moderately prestigious university, 2, they were taking the enriched course, 3, they were expecting to go to medical school. To quote one, "I don't need to cheat. I'm a med student at university." This despite having been caught red-handed and not yet being anywhere near med school. By any standard, a lot of these kids were pretty mediocre at best. One such student tried to hand a lab report in late, despite their having been told that the deadline was inflexible. Late report equals no report. He'd claimed that he'd been granted permission by the lab coordinator. I checked with her to be sure, and to my lack of surprise was told that that was BS. I chucked it back to the guy with a big fat 0 written in red pen on the front page and a warning not to try anything like that again. But this guy seemed to be more than usually clueless. A few weeks after that, the students were working on a module on shapes and symmetry of molecules. They were building models using chemical tinker toys, balls and sticks to represent atoms and bonds. They were supposed to be learning about three-dimensional structures, comparing them to their mirror images, seeing what happened if parts were rotated. Because some people have trouble understanding these concepts, the students were allowed to work in larger groups than their usual lab partner pairs. But this guy was by himself, and appeared to be sticking the balls and sticks together randomly, playing with the tinker toys rather than working on the module. It would have been okay if he'd been doing something related to chemical structures. I'd have encouraged creative thinking about the subject, but this was just kindergarten playing, so I thought I'd gently encourage him to get back on track. I came up to him, peered at his ball and stick structure, looked pointedly at his open lab manual, looked again at his tinker toys, then looked at him in the eyes and asked, "So what are you on?" He anxiously snapped back, "Nothing." I paused for a couple of seconds, blinking, processing the situation. Then I asked, "What exercise are you on?" "Oh, exercise 3." I just looked at him, shook my head, and walked away. A couple of weeks after that, he disappeared from my lab section. I never saw him again. I hope he didn't get into med school. Then, in a comment from Weasel Panties, I used to TA biology labs, and I feel there was at least one of this kind of Kevin every single term. The pre-meds who are nowhere near med school, but think that their mere mention of going to med school makes them smarter than everyone else, are often the worst students. Also, surprise, they are rarely the ones who actually get into med school. To that, OP replies, the students at this place had a lot of attitude of superiority. I did my undergrad at University C and my MS at a joint program from University C and O before the PhD at University Q. C was noticeable for accepting students whose GPAs weren't great into the first year arts programs, giving them a chance, though their standards for graduating with a degree were no different from other institutions. Sure, give us your tuition. If you screw up, you don't get a refund. A lot of students didn't get to second year. Moderately prestigious Q sneered at Last Chance U, even though the cutoff grades for acceptance into science and engineering programs were higher at C than at Q. If an engineering student at C failed badly in their first year, they were gone, while Q had remedial courses, try again. My own observation was that the first year chem labs at C were rather more rigorous than those at Q. Though I got stupid questions at both C and Q, the ones I faced at Q were worse. And the med school wannabes were the worst. I wouldn't have wanted to see them in a medical situation, nor deal with the buildings or bridges cooked up by most of the wannabe engineers. Our last post of the day is from r/legaladvice, posted by ICBreakfast1716. eBay gone wild. Hey r/legaladvice, I need some help here. In November, before Thanksgiving, I purchased a 2021 16-inch MacBook Pro on eBay from a reputable seller with 1,700 plus feedback and a 97.3% positive rating. The seller is a small shop in Brooklyn, New York. The laptop had a scuff mark on the screen and a small dent on the top and bottom covers, but it came with Apple Care Plus until 2025, so I was planning on having the damage taken care of that way. The laptop arrived, but the seller did not wipe it. It had a generic user account with a super secret password, which I guessed on the first go. It had a couple of random apps installed and a Safari history full of YouTube searches for popular videos and questions about how to unlock iPhones. It ended up sitting for a couple of weeks, and then it took a couple of weeks at the service center to get the screen and top and bottom replaced due to the holidays and my travel. I paid $324 when I picked it up because AppleCare did not cover the bottom cover. Anyway, I brought it home and realized they never wipe the drive like service centers usually do. So I wipe the disk and boot the OS, and it calls home for activation and tells me that it has an MDM profiler of a large corporation. This laptop is a stolen corporate asset. I contacted the support of large corporation, told them that I have what appears to be their stolen asset, and asked how they wanted to proceed with that. They told me to return it to the seller and let them know when the return was complete so they could retrieve it from the seller. I filed the eBay return because the device was stolen. The seller canceled the return and told me they could exchange it for an identical laptop, but in the original box with matching serial numbers to prove that it was not stolen. I requested the return label. Seller told me they would send one ASAP, and it disappeared for a week. I contacted them a week later, and they told me to send them the laptop and they will replace it. I wrote back telling them that the promised shipping label had never arrived and that I would not pay for a shipping label out of pocket because I had already paid $324 for Apple service. The seller replied 4 days later and told me that I had to buy my label and that they were giving me the courtesy of replacing this laptop. I replied that exchanging a stolen laptop they sold me was not a courtesy, but something an honest seller would do, and asked them for a shipping label again, with no reply for another week. I contacted them again, asking for a shipping label. They reply saying that if I don't have the laptop back in 3 days, I can forget about any exchanges. WTF? By that time, it is already mid-February. I contact eBay support about this return. They retrieve all communication between the seller and me and told me they would reply. After 3 days of no reply, I contact them again. The lady on the phone asked me, "What exactly do you expect us to do about this?" At this point, get my money back? Because I do not want anything from that seller. The lady on the phone tells me that because it is past 30 days from the purchase time, there's nothing they can do about it, and I need to talk to the seller and ask for a refund. I explained the situation again, and she told me she understood the problem, but they could do nothing for me. and the fact that my account on eBay is 24 years active with no rating below 5 stars as a seller or a buyer does not matter to them. Meanwhile, large corporations support regularly contacts me for status, so I keep them updated. I tried to contact the seller again twice but got no response whatsoever. Support of the large corporation asked for my address so they can ship me a box in which I would send the laptop back to them. I replied to them saying I would not return the computer until I explored every legal possibility of getting my money back. I asked them if their legal team would provide suggestions or support since getting the asset back is ultimately in the company's interest. I have also pleaded with them to possibly unlock the computer so I can keep it because the price of this asset does not even register as a margin of error in their accounting numbers. And they spend more money on toilet paper, and for me, it's a significant amount of money. Plus, I contacted them to inform them that I had their stolen corporate asset and wanted them to have it back, but I ended up in an unfortunate situation. They replied saying their corporate policy does not allow them to unlock it and wish me luck in getting my money back. I contacted my bank to see if a chargeback is possible. Still, to them, it is a legitimate transaction because I have the laptop in my possession and will not return it to the seller because the seller is not responding to me, which I had to mention as the reason for the chargeback. So here I am, with a laptop I cannot use or sell. I'm $3,000 down the drain. How can I get my money back and return this bricked laptop to the seller or convince the large corporation to unlock it since they're okay with keeping it as is? Police report? I doubt it will help. Police have other things going on. Sue the seller? What would it cost me? How long is that going to go on for? What are the chances of me getting my money back? I'm in Texas. The seller is in Brooklyn, New York. Well, what do you guys think? What should OP do? Feel free to leave a comment below. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time on Reddit Reader.